on Northwest 3rd Street and 4th Avenue in Miami, Florida, we have Lummis Park. Inside the park, one of the buildings that you would see is slave quarters. William English constructed this building around 1842. Its original location was around the Fort Dallas area, the area in which Julia Tuttle lived and the Brickles lived, in that area. That's where it originally was. However, the Daughters of the American Revolution decided to preserve it in the 1920s, so they literally moved the building to this spot so that history could be preserved. This building has served many purposes. Of course, it was a slave quarters. It served as a place for the military during the Seminole Wars. It served as Julia Tuttle's property and the property of others. It was the first courthouse and post office here in Dade County. It's important to note that when the Daughters of the American Revolution decided to move this building and preserve it, they were more so focusing on the legacy of Julia Tuttle. And later on, it was discovered that this was the slave quarters. Thanks to the Dade Heritage Trust, now we have the opportunity to go inside. Keep watching. So now we're inside the slave quarters. So is this natural? This is a natural, like the original part of the slave quarters?
Yeah. This was originally a slave quarters.
Okay.
And then it was turned into a military barracks. You see it during the Seminole.
It was built in 1844, and it was part of a large plantation that belonged to this guy named William English.
Okay.
And it was originally on like the mouth of the Miami River.
Okay.
So also moved to this park to preserve it. And he eventually sold or left because there was a lot of tension at the time with the Seminole Wars. So a lot of people were leaving. That was kind of keeping people from coming here as well. And so we don't know what happened to those enslaved people who worked and built this place.
Okay.
Like, did he take him with him? Did they flee and join the Seminoles, which so many runaway enslaved people did at the time? We don't know, and I don't even know how many they had, because again, it wasn't something that was like worthy of being documented at the time. But yeah, that was its original function in 1844, and then I want to say in, I don't know what year after, it was turned into soldier barracks. So because of the Seminole Wars, the U.S. Army kind of took over this whole plantation and turned the whole thing into a fort, basically. And that's why it gets its name, Fort Dallas, today.
Okay.
Because it was named after a lieutenant or something named Dallas. And it was a soldier barracks for a couple years during the Seminole Wars. And then actually in 1873, the building was transformed and actually became a courthouse and post office.
The first courthouse.
This was the first courthouse in Miami-Dade County.
Cool.
And it served, I mean, again, the population was so small, but it served the population that was here in 1876. So this is still before the city was incorporated, before the railroad and everything. And then as more and more people started to come down to live in South Florida, it was turned into a residence, a private residence, which you can see. It's a small picture, but this is when it was a residence.
Okay.
So you can see there's like a porch area kind of with columns that you don't see today. Julia Tuttle eventually purchased the building, so that's really the only reason why this building is still here today. Like the Daughters of the American Revolution were like, this is Julia Tuttle's house, we gotta save it and move it here. And later we learned all of this other history, that it was actually, a house for enslaved workers, and that was its original function. So But they had it, they used it for meetings for a long time, the Daughters
Makes
of
sense.
the American Revolution. That's why there's like that stage there.
So this is original to the Daughters of the American Revolution.
Yeah, so when this was moved here in 1923.
Okay, that's a good year. Okay.
Yeah,
I mean, it's a long time ago, so.
Yeah, it was moved here in 1923. It was one of the first known like preservation efforts in Miami.
Okay.
And it was kind of rebuilt here on site. So the rock is original, but you can see that, you know, it's sort of glued together
Yeah.
with concrete. But the oolitic limestone was original, but everything else was sort of reconstructed. Like the roof, after they moved the building and rebuilt it here, it collapsed, I think a few months later. Many of the windows, although they are old by today's standards, are not like original.
So what's original is only the
It's
wall.
the rock.
Okay, the rock. Okay, that's pretty interesting.
Yeah.
Okay. So this is the first courthouse, the first post office. It was first a slave quarters, turned Fort Dallas, turned property for Julia Tuttle, probably somebody else as well, turned property of the Daughters, the Daughters of the Revolution, you said?
American Revolution, DAR.
DAR, Daughters of the American Revolution. This is the first example of, or the first effort to preserve anything in Miami.